everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ask Anything, brought to you by Moser Consulting. I'm your host, Adrienne and Moser's Director of Personnel. We're glad that you're with us for this episode of Ask Anything because today we're going to be discussing dashboards. Dashboards are a powerful tool for transforming complex data into clear, actionable insights. By consolidating key metrics in one place, they help individuals and organizations make informed decisions, track performance, and drive strategic outcomes. Today, however, we're going to be discussing a principle that aligns very well with what dashboards should be for you. And with me to discuss this topic are two of Moser's own, our Vice President of Data and Analytics, Adrienne Watts, and our Senior Consultant from our Analytics Department, Melissa Steffensen. Ladies, it's great to have you with us on Ask Anything. Thank you for coming back again to discuss this topic. How are you?
Hi, we're great. Happy to be here.
All right. So I want to start with discussing what the principle that we talked about before today's episode is, and that is we're going to be talking about the 3, 30, and 300 principle. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, we're happy to talk about that today. We're in the position where we get to partner with a lot of different clients to design dashboards for them. And specifically today, we're going to explore one method to help drive the design process, as well as increase adoption and usage. Like you said, the 3, 30, 300 principle. So at the highest level, some of the key purposes of dashboards really are to help organizations get value out of their data, to provide a tool for insights, and to provide users with access to their data in an easily consumable format. So when we're developing these dashboards, we often discuss topics such as adoption and knowing the audience, and we consider, are we developing the best reports? Do we understand and empathize with the end users or data consumers? And what does the end user want from this data? Is it actionable? What will they do next with this information? And there are many factors to be considered during development. And today we're going to talk about two tools to consider using when designing dashboards. And one is the 4x4 model for knowledge content, and then also the 330-300 rule.
Yeah, let's start with the 3-second principle, because I want to hear you in our pre-recording meeting, you mentioned something very interesting about it, but I want you to share with the audience about what it means, that 3-second in a dashboard. What does it mean when you say, oh, you have 3 seconds to make an impression?
3 seconds, that's where users should be able to quickly get an overview of the most critical information. So we'll think of visuals, a really small amount of visuals, KPIs, kind of card visuals, just to give kind of a really quick summary of what's going on, is more of the 3 seconds.
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit more as well. So 3, 30, and 300 are really just seconds, and it's how much time it should take a user to get those key takeaways and metrics off of that dashboard. So just like Melissa said, for our 3-second version of those reports, these are really targeted at executives or people that want to get a really quick insight to how the day is going. So they want to look at that dashboard, their eyes going to scan the screen for 2, 3, 4 seconds, and they're going to have the insights that they need. So they're super high level, and the amount of engagement is pretty short for those types of reports.
As someone who's had to provide quick and dirty reports like that, I can certainly relate. I'm sure you guys have a plethora of examples of that.
Yeah, I'd like to also overlay that with another methodology that we introduced, the 4x4 model. And that is from an author named Bill Shander. He published an article on Medium, and that article references just the fact that attention spans are short these days. Viewers spend less and less time reading content or on websites or consuming data in any format. And he focuses on how you can engage your audience and get the right people, the right information in the right amount of time. And he's created a visual that references 4 models. And he's got some cartoon graphics there to represent those. The first one is the water cooler, and it's got a picture, like a hand-drawn sketch of a water cooler. The second one is the cafe. And again, if you could picture an image of the cafe at the office. Right. The third one is the research library. And the fourth one is the lab. And so Bill's model is really about information design principles in general, not necessarily dashboarding, but it transfers very easily to the world of analytics and reporting. It's a powerful message. It's easy to remember, and it works. When you see those images, And so as we go through 330 and 300 today, we're also going to tie in water cooler, cafe, research library, and lab. So for us, the 3-second principle aligns very well with the water cooler from Bill's model.
So basically, you compare that 3 second to a quick water cooler conversation, as you will
Yes.
having around the office.
I think ultimately I can demonstrate my mastery of this subject matter with the following point. Basically, no matter what methodology you're following, ultimately what you really want to see is paradise by the dashboard lights. If I can steal just shamelessly from Meatloaf.
Yeah. Yes, that's
Thank
great.
you very
Yeah.
much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I'll be here all week.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's the concept, right? When you're at the office, people stop at a water cooler, they're just exchanging quick messages, or you pass somebody in the hallway. It's what's called a short form. And he makes an analogy to like it's a headline or an advertisement. So it's just going to grab your attention. And then if you want to learn more, the audience is curious, they can engage one of the deeper formats there. But the point is to know your user and how they're going to use the dashboard. And if they're in a hurry and they just want a quick metric, or they're just going to paste it in a report for a board of directors, that we're going to design to that kind of 3-second audience or that water cooler audience.
So I have an example as well for a 3-second or a water cooler report page. So if you can imagine, like I mentioned earlier, KPIs or a really small amount of visuals. So in the example I'm going to talk about is corporate spend. So you might have some KPIs showing like maybe 3 cards of actuals, the planned, and then the variance or the difference between those 3 of the spend, and then a pie chart showing the actuals by area and having it split up by that. So it's just really small amount of visuals, just 3 KPIs and a pie chart. That would be kind of what you're thinking. It just grabs your attention like, oh, that's how much we spent and this is how much was planned. And then someone may want to dig deeper into it. And then you would use another principle to go to a different report or a different report page to get more insights on that. But just to get a quick grab of attention, just having a small amount of visuals that tell you kind of a basic overview summary.
Yeah, I have to say, as someone who I've never seen this graphic before, so I'm going to say just reading it from left to right, it actually makes a lot of sense the way it's developed. And how you mentioned, you can see the actuals, the plan, span, and then the variance. And then if you look towards the middle, for those of you who are listening to this, you'll see a nice pie chart that graphs basically everything laid out as to what exactly are the actuals, and it's pretty good layout of those spends. So yeah, I really like it. If I was somebody that was looking for something like this, really quick and dirty, just give me the 10-second or 3-second informational aspect for this. This is perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I thought we could talk through another example, that an HR example, right? Almost every company has an HR department.
Yes.
And so an example of a 3-second version might be just getting the current head count for the company. So maybe that would be a bar chart by month to show the monthly numbers, so how you're trending over time. And the user could just very quickly see if headcount is up or down this month, etc. It might also have a couple of other key metrics. So maybe the number of separations year to date, whether it's up or down, some DEI counts, or a turnover rate as a percentage, etc. But the same thing. So your eye can scan and just get some company-wide really key metrics with just a scan of your eye.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. So shout out to any HRIS who might be listening. Get your data together. Put those quick and dirty charts out there for us. So let's move on to the 30-second principle. What can you guys tell us about it? And do you have any examples you'd like to share?
So for the 30 seconds, that one is going to have more of the ability to filter and zoom and get more like either specific periods or a specific category that a user would be interested in. So just giving a little bit more details. That one would also be the closest related to the cafe for the 4x4 by Bill Shander. And that he more talks about like medium length content, and he gives examples of a short article or a 3-minute video just to give a deeper exploration of the things you were looking at or talking about in the water cooler. So just to give a more detailed story. And I do have an example as well on that same corporate spend. I'll just share again for those who are watching. And so this one, you've got the actuals versus the planned, which is what we had on the summary page. But here you can select by sales region, which is what it's automatically on. There's a graph, a bar graph, and there's also a line showing, so the bars are the actuals and then the line showing what was planned. So then you can see, okay, for Europe, as an example, we have 345 that we were actually spending, but only planned 322. So that was above. And then you can also do it by IT area to see what you were, if you were more interested in the IT area than a sales region, of what you spent versus what you planned. And then also by whether it was on, what did you spend on labor or hardware and software? So you can see the actuals and plans versus departments, IT areas, sales regions. So not just showing the amount that you spent overall as a company, but showing more detailed in what areas, what countries, and what items you could say that you spent and planned to spend on. Like, where are you doing the best and worst more specifically?
I think the cafe metaphor really refers to when people are in the office and they gather in the cafe and they have a slightly longer conversation than you would have at the water cooler. So it is a little bit longer of a format, needs to tell a compelling story, have a bit more detail. The audience of these reports might be a little bit different as well. So instead of maybe executives and boards of directors, etc., this might be more for directors and managers or people who need a slightly more detailed view of the data. And they're going to spend around 30 seconds maybe consuming that information. So they're not going to just skim it with their eye, but they're going to spend a little bit longer, dig a bit deeper to get some deeper insights out of that page. These reports, as Melissa demonstrated, might have more filtering and zooming, a little bit more interactivity with the data so they can get that greater detail. They might be reviewing summaries and trends and getting some performance metrics. So you have to provide enough information to support some quick, informed decisions without overwhelming the user. And to just carry the examples through, an HR headcount report in this category might focus on one particular department or division within an organization. So it wouldn't just show you, here's our total headcount, but now it could show the department headcount and compare that to the overall company headcount as a percentage. It could show how those numbers rank compared to other departments or divisions within the organization, but it's also going to provide additional insights and charts. So maybe it would have a bar chart for years of service to show how many employees have worked there 0 to 5 years or 6 to 10 years, etc. So you can get an overall sense of longevity. You could get all the ethnicity stats and composition, gender breakdown, or maybe the top 5 reasons for separation. So you're going to get a lot more detail on this report, but still something that you can engage in and get some key insights in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, definitely. It's a little bit of a deeper dig than the 3-second report. It just kind of lays on the foundation from that and builds upon it, and then just kind of gives you the nitty gritty details that you looked at first, but now you're drilling down. Now you want to know much more information. And like you said, Adrienne, it's a conversation around while the coffee maker is functioning and it's kind of brewing your coffee and you're just sitting there waiting for it. This is what it's all about. It's just you're waiting for that. Oh, let me take a look at this, and then you drill down. To take it back to the HR example, you can look at employees by divisions, by departments, etc. You can see the headcount for every department. Maybe you have a goal that you want to achieve, or on people that you want to hire next for this department or this division. So you can look at those numbers easier and get a better idea of where you're standing at the moment. So I agree. This is my cup of tea. When reports drill down like this is the stuff I like. But I know we got a little bit deeper to go with the 300 principle. So let's talk about that. And if you guys have any examples of it.
So yeah, as we're discussing and going deeper, the 300 seconds is where they should get like really detailed information to like inform decisions and make actions off of it, where there's much more detail. And it's the same with, in this case, the research library and the lab in the 4x4 are separated, but they're kind of similar in the 300 seconds, where the research library has got like long form, more in-depth content, or like research papers, or just more comprehensive information, whereas the lab is more interactive, where you can engage directly with data. And in this case, in reporting, sometimes those can be combined, where you're not just having on a report just lots of information. A lot of times in reports, they're interactive. You can slice and dice in the way you want. So in the 300, the research lab and the library are kind of similar on that.
I agree. The concept here is to really expose deep insights and sometimes the raw data. So you can get performance details, lots of analysis and exploration. So the audience of these reports could be managers who want to make informed decisions. It could be your analysts who want to explore the data. So sometimes this data story isn't told yet, right? You're
Right.
interacting with that in a lot of ways. You're looking for outliers, you're looking for trends. It's very interactive. And the end users might be those focused on a specific area or those who are tasked with doing data analysis. 300 seconds equates to 5 minutes, but it's 5 minutes and up. So people can spend a lot of time here if there's interest and need. These reports are much more comprehensive. It definitely allows the users to drill down and drill through and see all of the details. So this might have detailed graphs and slicers and lots of ways to interact, just one step up from the last model. It will allow the consumer of these reports to explore various scenarios and understand underlying patterns and causes. So you just see a lot more detail on these kinds of reports, and the insights gained here can inform more strategic decisions and long-term planning.
I view it as a future-leaning, data-driven decision-making tool. Because as you mentioned, Adrienne, you're looking at data that might not necessarily, it's influential now, but it might influence you into making a decision towards the future. In the previous 30-second example, I was using the example of maybe you're looking into hiring more from a certain department or division. Well, if you're looking at an HR data and you're looking at your separations, your hirings, et cetera, you want to look at that data and kind of look into the future and see how the hiring might take effect or how many separations you might have in the future based on the current data that's currently in front of you. So I view this as a futuristic tool, but in the now, so that you can make informed decisions, as you were saying.
In like a spend report, where you can see what specific departments or what specific items are you paying too much for, or where you have room to get something a little bit better or more of, or you might have on the analysis able to see that you have budget for another analyst, for example, or things like that, where you might not be able to see it, especially not on that 3 seconds page. But then you get more detailed. You can think of like table visualizations, trends, line graphs, and like Adrienne mentioned, slicers or filters that you can just really dig into the specific details, because you have all that more, and also more visuals per page or per report.
Yeah, an example of an HR report in this category could have a chart from the cafe version, such as separations by month or hires by month, but it will also show all of the hires and separations last month and maybe the last 24 months, etc. And it very likely may also have a table at the bottom of the report. So like an Excel worksheet, like table format, rows of data. So it's going to provide a list of employees along with many other kind of raw data points, maybe their hire date, how long they've been there, their job title, years served, department, their manager name, any DEI and gender tags, etc. So you've got rows and rows of raw data there that you can interact with in a lot of different ways. So now when the user clicks on that bar chart at the top of the page, it shows there were 5 new hires or 3 separations last month. When you click on the 5, that table filters to just those 5 records. So now you can see which department were they with and which managers, and you can start doing a lot of exploration and analysis of that data.
Yeah, and I like how we're kind of going back and forth between finances and HR data, because a lot of places don't necessarily look at those two and put them together. I think that's a mistake. We should always look at the company's bottom line versus HR data, because I think one dictates the other. Obviously, if your company's making money, if it's successful, and you have more hiring power to keep bringing people into the company. So like Melissa was saying, you can look at those numbers and decide whether you have enough budget going into the future to hire that analyst or anything else that you might need down the line. So I kind of like that we're making that distinction, but that we're also sort of combining both those in here, because sometimes HR is thought to be a people-driven approach, which it totally is, but sometimes we miscommunicate that HR and numbers actually do go together too, because that's how we get who we're going to hire next, et cetera. And we make obviously some tough decisions based on that too, on the other end of the spectrum, but let's keep it light. Anything else that you guys would like to add about the 300 principle?
Yeah, I mean, both of these tools are kind of have overlapping or similar takeaways, right? It really is presenting knowledge content in a way that engages the consumer and provides the right level of content based upon their needs and interests. And in the end, after these things go to production, this should improve engagement and adoption as well, if we're giving people data in the format that they need it to be in. And then finally, I just want to say that 330-300, it's easy to remember and it works. So it really just helps us understand how to present that data at different levels to get the best results.
All right. So before we go, what advice would you give to anyone looking to implement dashboards in order to make sure they get used?
For one, definitely knowing your audience and who you're creating the dashboard for, because that's really important. If you're making a dashboard for an executive, but you're building it in a way that you would want to read it as an analyst, for example, then they might not want to read it. It definitely needs to be tailored to the audience, which is why like 330-300 is so important, either on a report itself or on a report page, moving it or designing it in that way. It makes it more usable. People are going to use things that are useful to them. So asking as many questions as possible to who you're creating it for is always the first and most important step. You definitely need to ask questions. Who's using it? What are you using it for? What decisions are you trying to make with this data? Things like that is what's going to get your dashboard used, or at least one of the things that's going to get it used.
Not involving stakeholders early enough can sometimes lead to misalignment on objectives. So everything that Melissa just said, like doing a lot of discovery, meeting, asking lots of questions, and just doing iterative development and continuing to demo the report to the key stakeholders and getting that feedback. And we also like to say a dashboard for everyone is a dashboard for no one. And so you can't assign just one artifact to really appease all of the different audiences. So if you have someone that's an analyst by nature and they need 100 or 1,000 rows of data and they want to interact with that a lot of different ways, that's a very different kind of user than maybe your executive or 3-second dashboard who just wants those takeaways already done and spelled out for them on the screen. And so we don't want to give just one view of that data. So sometimes we will give 2 or 3 versions of that data set to different stakeholders.
All right. And with that, if you have any data needs, you can see we have very great professionals who know what they're talking about, who know what they're doing in our data analytics team, led by Miss Adrienne Watts here. So please contact Moser Consulting to make sure that we can help you with your data needs. Ladies, it's been a pleasure to have you back on Ask Anything. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you want to talk meatloaf lyrics, that's why we have a marketing department.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Thank you for listening into this week's edition of Ask Anything presented by Moser Consulting. We hope you enjoyed listening to Adrienne Watts and Melissa Steffensen talk to us about dashboards. Be sure to join us next time as we continue to dive deeper with our resident experts on what they're currently working on. Don't forget to share your ideas or topics with us on social media. In the meantime, please remember to give us a rating and subscribe to our feed wherever you get podcasts. Until then, so long, everybody.
Go